Hey there, it's Casey Finey, host of Creative Control and also the Director of Programming for Fast Company's live events. And I'm here to remind you that we have our biggest event of the year coming up. Fast Company's 11th Annual Innovation Festival hits New York City this September 15th through the 18th. And we have an incredible lineup of speakers, activations, workshops, dinners, and so much more. It's going to be a packed week full of insights, networking, and yes, innovation. So head over to events.fastcompany.com to get the most up-to-date lineup of speakers and sessions. And if you like what you see, which I know you will, use code CREATE20 for 20% off select Innovation Festival passes. That's CREATE20 to save 20%. Get your Innovation Festival pass today, and I'll see you there.
We've had branded entertainment since Procter & Gamble invented soap operas back in the 1930s. But as media fragmentation has gone into hyperdrive over the past 2 decades, brands have been forced to diversify the ways in which they gain and hold our attention. But you know this. You also know that marketers can and are able to create content and experiences that attract and engage audiences rather than interrupt and annoy them, and drive business results. Brands of all stripes talk about brand entertainment. But it is the exceptions that truly invest in making actual entertainment. Dick's Sporting Goods has been doing just that for years. Over the past decade, the company has built an impressive catalog of 5 feature-length films and 10 short-form or episodic documentaries. But this month, it officially launched an in-house studio division called Cookie Jar and a Dream Studios to formalize its commitment to entertainment as a pillar of its brand. On today's episode, I'm talking to Dick's Chief Marketing Officer, Emily Silver, about after all this time and all these projects, why now is the perfect time for an in-house studio. We'll dig into how it will impact how they evaluate, invest, and produce entertainment, how they measure success on projects, and where it all goes from here. But first, the evolution of modern brand entertainment has been fascinating to watch, so I wanted to put what Dick's is doing into some context. To do that, I called up a very special guest and expert to break down the best brand entertainment of the past decade, as well as a few of the most influential projects of this century. Hey, I may not be Clive Owen in a BMW, but I am Jeff Beer. And this is Brand New World. Okay, for this segment, I needed a heavy hitter. So I called up Zach Ryder. Along with CEO Brooke Stites and co-chief creative officer Adam Groves, Zach co-founded the brand entertainment firm Modern Arts in 2023. Before that, he was executive creative director at famed production and management company Anonymous Content from 2018 to 2024. I wrote about Zach and Modern Arts last year, and actually the June episode of Brand New World featured work they did with WhatsApp on the Netflix doc The Seat. If you haven't heard my chat with Meta's global head of consumer marketing, Ashan Panadurai, about that project with the Mercedes F1 team, go check it out. Today, Zach and I are going to break down our picks for the best brand entertainment of the past decade. All right, Zach, welcome, man. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, dude.
I'm always up for a good chat around brand entertainment and what that even is. So actually, you know what? I want to start with thinking about how we define this, because when we talk about the topic around this, like being like, here's the best top 5 brand entertainment pieces of the last decade. It's like, well, okay, there's got to be some parameters. When I think brand entertainment, it's kind of like, okay, this is brand created / produced content that is crafted like or in a similar format to traditional entertainment, films, TV, docs, that sort of thing. I want to say for the purpose of this chat that social media, which is obviously a major source of entertainment, we lose hours on TikTok and Reels, but that's not what we're talking about today. Just for context, and you brought this question up earlier, let's talk about, I want to ask you, what's the difference between entertainment based on a brand's IP versus brand entertainment as a marketing initiative? Maybe that's a good baseline maybe to establish.
So I generally try to think like in analogies when I'm trying to explain this thing to people. And I think the one that I've landed on is, one is a ghost story told around a campfire. The other is a ghost story told around a campfire to sell flashlights.
Perfect. Okay.
I think for these purposes, the type of brand entertainment we're talking about, has to be part of like a marketing initiative, right? There's some sort of like business goal, whether that's like launching a product or growing share with like a specific audience. There's some sort of like business problem that the content is trying to solve. And I also just think generally, like as a rule, like if the CMO didn't have to sign off on it, then we can't consider it brand entertainment in that sense.
Okay.
Right. So like there's all these great examples of content based on a brand's IP, right? Barbie movie, Minecraft movie. You can list the Lego, you can list them all day long. They're amazing, right? And those have value. They're incredible. But they serve a completely different function than brand entertainment in the sense that I think we're both talking about.
Yeah, I was going to discount actually the major blockbuster movies like Barbie, Lego Movie, Minecraft, and Super Mario Bros. Actually for just being like too obvious. Before we get to our lists, though, I want to acknowledge that we're talking about the last 10 years. There's some incredibly influential work in this space that, I mean, I would maybe go back to, I'm not going to go back because every article that talks about brand entertainment talks about soap operas and the original soap operas. I'm just going to go back to like maybe early 2000s where we talk about this, because I'm not going to talk about, selling Ivory soap in the middle of the afternoon. What do you see as your most influential pieces of work here?
Yeah, I mean, call them like brand entertainment 1.0. I look at like BMW's The Hire series, right? That's one that I think everybody references. In fact, when Adam and I started the lab at Anonymous Content, who had made the original BMW films with Fallon, the reason we were brought in to do it is because 15 years later, brands were still calling Anonymous Content and saying, hey, help us figure out how to make our BMW films.
Okay, yeah.
That's the legacy of that series, right? Brands are still kind of chasing it. Just the level of filmmakers they had involved, like it was such a ridiculous thing to put them out on CD-ROMs and DVD. Like it makes no sense when you think about it.
Yes, no, exactly. For those who don't know, it came out 2001, 2002. It was a series of 8 short films starring Clive Owen, and each short film was led by a different director, like the likes of John Woo, Tony Scott, Ang Lee, Alejandro Gonzalez Inarritu, Guy Ritchie. No one had ever seen anything like this.
It was epic on a scale that you kind of can't describe. And so I think that to me is like the one that just sort of like started it all. And like I said, it has this legacy. People still point to it and kind of admire it for what it was doing. I think the other one that I always think about, and honestly, like I still watch sometimes, is the Grey Goose series Iconoclasts that Radical Media made.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That one, I think they ran for 6 seasons, and the episodes were really simple. It was like 2 icons in conversation about like life and their careers. And I mean, all you need to know about Iconoclast is that they got Maya Angelou and Dave Chappelle in an episode.
Yes.
Like that's how good it was.
Was there a Laird Hamilton, Eddie Vedder episode?
There's a Laird Hamilton, Eddie Vedder episode. And they're not like in a studio, right? They're out in the world.
Yeah.
Like living their lives, and they're just sort of like hanging out. And we get to just sort of be a fly on the wall for these pretty amazing conversations. And I just think like that's another one that I point to all the time as like, it made so much sense for the brand, and it was a really like big swing. It was on IFC. Lots of people watched it. And again, like people still reference it all the time.
Do you want to hear a dirty little secret?
Always.
I honestly forgot what brand was behind it.
Really? That's so interesting.
I did. I mean, look, I have to watch so much stuff, but like I did. And I just say the BMW example to me was like, I probably would remember now because I'm so attuned to, YouTube series and things like I wrote recently about Huckberry and their series Dirt. And I'm very aware that who presents this because it's also on their YouTube channel. It wasn't, today, maybe if this came out, it'd be on maybe a broadcaster, but it would also be Grey Goose would be all over this in terms of hyping and getting us to go watch it.
Yeah. It's interesting because I think from the brand's perspective, like all the show was trying to do was capture kind of like the feeling of having a great conversation with someone over a drink. And even though there's nobody drinking in the episodes, like it's capturing like an essence.
It's like vibe matchmaking in a really cool way.
Exactly. And I think the reason it was so successful and the reason they got so many incredibly influential people to take part in it is it wasn't like this heavy-handed, like overtly branded thing. But you're right. Like if they were to make Iconoclast today, it would be surrounded by this crazy ecosystem of shoulder content and all these different cut downs and teasers and trailers. And there'd be a massive like comms plan around it.
Okay, so my other most influential in terms of I couldn't believe how big it got is Red Bull Stratos.
Sure.
Obviously, this is a brand that's built a lot of its name up in action sports generally, but they took things to the next level with a live broadcast of Felix Baumgartner jumping from like the edge of the Earth's atmosphere. He broke 3 world records, which exit altitude, vertical speed, and free fall distance. Live broadcast. I think it was on TV, but also online. And this was like stunt content at its finest. Like unbelievable.
Yeah, I don't think anyone will ever top it for that. I also just love that, like, what's Red Bull's tagline?
It gives you wings.
Gives you wings. And like at the most like base primal level, that's kind of what was happening there. Despite like all the incredible like technology that was making it possible and the sheer like magnitude of the attempt, at the end of the day, Red Bull gives you wings.
You could draw a thread between that and some of the stuff like, the amazing bike stunt videos with like Danny McCaskill or the snowboarding stuff with Travis Rice or whatever. It's like there is a line there, and this is just taking it to the absolute, pardon the word, extreme of this. And the success, I mean, the actual number of people who watched, to your point, people were like, brands would come into, offices like yours and say, make us, what's our version of the higher? And after that, there was like what's our version of Stratos?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, the bar is like completely reset.
Totally. Okay, so top 5 of the last decade. Now, another caveat is that obviously this is completely subjective. So everyone has their own favorites. We're happy to hear about them in the comments. Absolutely. But what I'd like to do is basically, I'm going to lead with your list, Zach, and I'll drop my choices in at the numbers after you're done listing yours off. Does that sound all right?
Perfect. Love it.
Awesome. So we'll start with number 5.
Number 5. So my number 5 all-time favorite is John Bronco and the sequel, John Bronco Rides Again, from Ford. I think it was 2020, and then they released the second one, I think a year later, on Hulu. For those who don't know it, John Bronco is a mockumentary about this legendary pitchman of the Ford Bronco from the 70s called John Bronco. It was played hilariously by Walton Goggins.
Steak and potatoes may feed my body, but a Bronco feeds my soul. Yeah! Hi, I'm John Bronco.
How many people do you know have a car named after?
For the launch of the all-new Bronco. Mark Gilbar and the Wizards at Imagine were the ones behind it. An amazing director named Jake Schmansky directed it. One of the things that makes it so kind of incredible is there's these amazing cameos in it by like Bo Derek and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and it's narrated by Dennis Quaid. And then the sequel is kind of even wackier. It's about this fictional podcaster's quest to get John Bronco a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. And I think if I remember correctly, like Brian Austin Green is in that one.
Yes, he's in the application room for the, as if there is a waiting room for your Walk of Fame.
And I just love the tone of those films. Like it feels like Righteous Gemstones or remember that show Vice Principals or Eastbound and Down, like any of those amazing Danny McBride, Jody Hill series. I think it's also just so rare that you see a brand do something scripted like this because the timelines on any sort of scripted thing are just really long and don't really line up with sort of the speed at which brands have to move. But to take a swing like this as part of what I can only imagine was an incredibly important launch for Ford, like that's pretty astounding.
Absolutely. I loved, in the second one, there was a thing where they did all these, like, so the podcaster guy's going through all these, like, going back through Bronco's history, John Bronco's history, and it talked about how he got so big, he was doing children's shows. There's a flash of, like, a cowboy calisthenics VHS tape, and then there's this amazing cereal commercial with Broncos, which is basically like Cheerios with pieces of sharp cheddar and pineapple cherry flavored gummy horseshoes. And
it's so good.
And then the slogan's like, get ready to shred the roof of your mouth.
It's so perfect. And it like, compare that to any other kind of car advertising you can think of.
I'm going to say my number 5, and you would never name this, but is the work you guys did for WhatsApp before the seat called We Are Allende, which it won the 2024 Cannes Lion Grand Prix in Entertainment. It's a short doc, under 30 minutes, about how the Afghanistan women's youth national football team used WhatsApp to flee the country when the Taliban came back into power in Afghanistan and banned women from participating in sports.
I received a message from my uncle, Fatima, do not get out of the house because Taliban are here. And I thought it was a joke. I never thought that Taliban would take over the country so easily.
It's just such an unexpected, powerful, and frankly, entertaining piece.
Yeah, I mean, thanks. I think one of the things that I think about when I look back on that project is, the brief was actually about just demonstrating the importance of WhatsApp's privacy features in the real lives of WhatsApp users. And then our strategy team got together with the strategy team at WhatsApp, and after tons and tons of research, landed on this insight about how WhatsApp is a safe space for women in vulnerable situations all over the world.
Okay, yeah.
And then that led us to a creative platform called The Power of Sisterhood. And so then really what you're trying to do is you're looking for stories that express that idea. And so then, you can imagine there's billions of WhatsApp users, right? It's the biggest haystack you could ever think of. But when you have that lens with which to sort of look for stories through, it becomes much easier to evaluate like which ones work and like which one you want to kind of bet on. And so that story, I think, is like kind of the ultimate expression for me of like the role that WhatsApp plays in its users' lives and how they sort of rely on its privacy features to keep them safe.
Yeah, it was amazing. Okay, number 4. What's your number 4?
My number 4 is a film called 5B, which was a feature film by Johnson & Johnson. I think it came out in 2019. It was a project that was conceived by Brendan Gall and the team at Media Brands. And it was directed by Dan Krause and Paul Haggis, Oscar winner. It's this feature about the nurses and caregivers who opened the first HIV/AIDS unit in the world at San Francisco General Hospital in the early 1980s. And on the surface, right, it's like such a dark, heavy story. But through the interviews with the nurses and their patients and the family members, and then there's all this amazing archival footage, it's ultimately like this super uplifting film. And then when I kind of think about the strategy behind it, like Johnson & Johnson made it to help change the public perception of nurses, who are usually in stories and movies sort of always were portrayed as like assistants to the doctor. And then this was also about, I think, Johnson & Johnson like reminding the audience of this role they've always played on the front lines of medicine. So there's like this subtextual thing going on too. But I just love projects that have like real purpose. I cried pretty hard when I saw this one the first time. And I can't say that happens very often in brand entertainment.
Right.
But like such a special film.
Well, like to your point around, the kind of wackiness of John Bronco for Ford, this is like the opposite kind of risk on the scale of content and risk is like, this is quite dark. And I feel like a lot of brands might shy away from that. When we spoke about laid out our definitions of what we were talking about when it comes to brand entertainment, is it sort of like more a brand image play here for Johnson & Johnson in terms of their involvement on the front lines? Or what do you see as, even from the outside, you're looking at this and trying to see their strategy, I guess, like, is it more of a brand image play than a specific business goal?
Yeah, I think there are certain projects like this where it's about the brand trying to sort of reflect their values for an audience through a story. It's not necessarily about selling a product. It's not about growing an audience. It's about getting people to sort of think a little bit differently about the company. But then I also think like films like this, they also have the added benefit of like creating, I think, a conversation internally, right? Where like all the employees of Johnson & Johnson probably see this film and feel great about working there. And so there's sort of two audiences. And I think that's the case for a lot of these kinds of films that are sort of more purpose-led. And so I just feel like there's probably multiple layers to the strategy. But I think you're right that not every brand is going to like kind of step up and tell a story like this and kind of let it be what it needs to be, which is dark at times, but ultimately like really uplifting.
Yeah. My number 4 is from Nike, and it's from 2017 called Breaking 2. For those who haven't heard of it, it's basically the film chronicling the brand's initially unsuccessful attempt to break the 2-hour marathon barrier. It was produced in partnership with Nat Geo, National Geographic, and yeah, a group of runners, particularly Kenyan Eliud Kipchoge, I think, if I'm pronouncing that right, who actually he missed it by about 25 seconds in this documentary, but actually, I think did it 2 years later in the Vienna Marathon. So it's a good little asterisk to this. But the project, like the storytelling, the characters were so good, and I think it set a precedent for Nike's. Not only did it help Nike rejuvenate its sort of innovation reputation because of just the story of how they sort of approached the footwear and the runners, but it actually put them on a path that eventually led to them establishing an entertainment division called Waffle Iron Entertainment, and they got a multi-year first look film deal with Apple. So I think it helped sort of pave the way for what they're doing, and it's a really, really cool doc project. And that combination of product with a goal. I mean, Stratos, as we talked about earlier, is kind of that as well, but like Red Bull being not really tied to it at all. It's not like he's chugging Red Bull up at the Earth's atmosphere. This is the product, and the brand is very central to the story, but it's like the characters were stronger. So anyway, that's my number 4.
It's interesting. Like, I think my favorite part about the film is that you watch him train his butt off for months and months, and you watch the whole company like pour their hearts into helping him try to break this record, and he doesn't do it.
Yeah. Which I think is actually a better story. Failure is amazing.
Yeah. Like, what an amazing statement, right? About what it means to be an athlete and a competitor. You leave the film with this sense that Iliad and Nike, like, they're not going to stop trying. And you just love everybody for it.
Absolutely.
I think if that film ends with him breaking the record, it's a powerful film, but the fact that he doesn't do it, just to me, like, makes it so much stronger.
Yeah, and it's more relatable almost in a way.
For sure.
We're all everyday athletes. It's not like we're getting it every time. Okay, so Zach, your number 3. What's your number 3?
My number 3 is another one from Imagine, interestingly. It's called Dads by Dove Plus Men Care. I think it was 2019.
Yep.
It was on Apple TV Plus. It's directed by Bryce Dallas Howard. She teams up with her dad, Ron Howard, to kind of explore what fatherhood means today, like in contemporary culture. And they interviewed everyday dads from all over the world, sort of to look at kind of what being a dad means in different parts of the globe.
Being the father, it's a very fluid thing.
It's love at first sight, like for real, for real.
I'm not Jimmy Fallon anymore. I'm Winnie's dad.
Now, this dude lives here forever.
Wipe my butt.
But then they also interviewed famous dads like Judd Apatow and Conan and Jimmy Kimmel. It's funny, it's profound, it's not preachy, which I love. And Unilever made it for Dove Plus Men Care as part of their initiative around getting lawmakers to make paternity leave a guaranteed right. And also just sort of, they were doing a bunch of stuff like challenging norms around the man's role in the family. I think one of the things that I remember about the film is that it was acquired by Apple TV Plus at TIFF, which I remember being a huge deal because it was, I think, the first thing Apple bought for the new streaming service before they launched it.
Oh, wow. Weird.
It was like this signal to the brand entertainment community that there was like a kind of like a new paradigm. I'm probably biased as dad, father of 2, but I think it's incredible. And I think it's a great example of a brand using their platform to try to create change.
I agree. I loved it. I did not see this when it originally came out. When you sent me your list earlier this week, I was like, oh, I have not seen that. And I watched it the other night, and it was super good. My number 3 is Lego Masters, which is the TV show. It's made me a bit of a cheat because we disqualified Lego Movie.
No.
I think it was originally a British a show in the UK, started in 2017, but my familiarity with it is more recent. Rest of my family are Lego addicts, and they record it when they can't see it. They love Will Arnett, who hosts the show. The show actually has, for those who haven't seen it, it's like a chat reality show, basically contest where they have a bunch of pairs that are contestants and they go through challenges every week, and there's eliminations, et cetera, that you'd expect from a reality show. But the judges are basically like Lego employees, these top designers with Lego that, you get to know them. I mean, it's such a brand play. It's unbelievable. Part of me watching it is like, my family doesn't care. They're just watching. They love it for what it is. But I'm watching it from this brand perspective, being like, oh my God, this is like a marketer's dream.
Yeah. I mean, it's a perfect expression of Lego's like brand mission, which is, I think it's something like, we inspire builders of tomorrow or something like that.
Yeah.
It's also this show that is born from something that Lego's been doing since like 2014 or 2015 through this thing they have called the Legos Idea Initiative.
Oh, yes.
Right? So it's this site where they throw out challenges to the community of builders all around the world, and the best builds have a chance to become actual Lego sets, right, that you can buy on the shelves. So the brand kind of just took this thing they were already doing and they like dialed it up to 11 and put it on TV.
Okay, so I want to jump to your number two.
Number two. Okay, so my number two...
We had some crossover here.
My number two is actually called Breaking 4, and it is the follow-up to Breaking 2. Breaking 4 just came out within the last couple months. It's on Prime Video. It's by Nike. It's a 3-part series about a Kenyan runner named Faith Kipyegon's quest to become the first woman in history to break the 4-minute mile, which is pretty astounding because Roger Bannister did it in like the early 1950s.
Yeah.
So they live streamed her attempt on YouTube alongside the 3 episodes, each of which are like almost an hour long. Like Breaking 2, it takes us inside her training over months, right, leading up to the attempt. And then it takes us inside like the core Nike team who are designing these new shoes and this apparel that's going to like help her try to break the record. It's produced by Box to Box, who are the ones who make Drive to Survive, right? So like it's executed incredibly well. But as a runner, like I appreciate the strategy behind it. Nike, it's no secret, like they've been losing share to like the hardcore running community for a few years to brands like On and Hoka and a few others. But by like undertaking another one of these moonshots and throwing everything they can at helping Faith shave precious seconds off her mile time, they're reminding runners of like what an innovative company they are and that they've kind of always been. To be honest, like it's working. Like if you spend any time in running forums on Reddit, you'll find the running community talking about it.
Nice.
6 months ago, that probably wasn't happening. And suddenly now, like they're back at the forefront of the conversation on places like Reddit because of something like this.
I loved it. Also, appearances by my favorite character from the Breaking 2, Kipchoge. He's pals with her and helps her.
He's like Yoda. He's incredible.
Yes, he's amazing. And it's interesting. We're talking about this. This is, we're speaking on August 26th, which not ironically, but coincidentally, last night in Italy, which is where Breaking 2 took place as well, Adidas one of their runners, a South African runner, the name is escaping me, broke the 6-hour mark for 100 kilometers. And their project was called Chasing 100. And I don't know if they're putting together a doc. They're doing some content, but the race was just finished. So they're obviously putting stuff together of the buildup. But it's very similar. But at the same time, I was kind of thinking about this as like a bit of you could just do this little arms race, this sports kind of innovation achievement arms race forever across, because about it's tech, it's design, it's sports science, and it's athletics, and it's just keep going, just like sports go on and on and on.
Yeah, I mean, to me, what Justin Biskin and the Waffle Iron Entertainment team are doing is just a blueprint, I think, for how brands should think about this space. Props to Jay Goodman for selling in the original vision of it. But my hope is that more brands look to Nike kind of like they kind of always have as like a bit of a pioneer and start to sort of adopt these kinds of models. Because I do think you're only going to see them have more success with these kinds of projects.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, my number 2 is from 2016, and it's from a B2B cybersecurity tech brand called NetScout. And it's a movie, a Werner Herzog documentary called Lo and Behold, Reveries of the Connected World. And it was created with agency Pereira Odell. And to me, this was just a completely unexpected project.
So Charlie typed the L, and he said, "You get the L?" And Bill said, "Yep, got the L." Type the O. "You get the O?" "Yep, got the O." Type the G, "You get the G?" Crash. The SRI computer crashed. So the first message ever on the internet was lo, as in lo and behold. We couldn't have asked for a more succinct, more powerful, more prophetic message than lo.
And when I spoke to the CMO back then about it, he just told me, like, originally it was going to be a web series, and it was even then a hard sell. And they got Werner Herzog on board. And as soon as he started shooting, he came to them and he was like, "This is my next film." And they were like, okay. And they had to agree. I mean, what a leap of faith. But I mean, when it came out, it came out at Sundance, eventually went on Netflix. Variety film critic Justin Chang, I wrote this down, wrote, "It drifts lucidly from one subject to the next, from celebratory anecdote to cautionary tale, with an intellectual verb that is never less than engrossing." And The Guardian gave it 4 out of 5 stars. So, and actually Elon Musk is in it. Like, it's all over the place. But it really changed my perspective on what was possible from certain types of brands. It really opened up the idea to me that it's possible if you want to look in the right places and take calculated creative risks. I think that's what we were talking about with WhatsApp as well. I mean, you're hiring Werner Herzog for a brand film of a brand that really no one's ever heard of. So, yeah, I don't know. That one was fascinating to me.
I love that one. It's another one that I think, like, at the time kind of reset the bar for everybody. Getting a filmmaker like Werner Herzog to make anything with a brand is, like, always
right.
Pretty amazing. But I think one of my favorite things about it is how unafraid the doc is to, like, challenge whether or not the internet and everything that it's given us is actually a good thing.
Yeah.
It feels, like, really honest. There's no agenda. And I think because of that, the audience gives the brand a ton of credit for it.
Totally agree. Okay, so here we are. Number 1, Zack Ryder's number 1 of the last decade piece of brand entertainment. What do you got?
My all-time number 1 favorite is Skittles commercial, the Broadway musical from 2019.
Michael, last week you expressed some anxiety about starring in Skittles commercial, the Broadway musical.
Yes, I have been having some doubts. I mean, I don't really do ads.
Well, it would be stressful to be seen by millions of people in the big game.
No, just to be clear, the ad won't be on the actual game. People will buy tickets and watch it live in a theater.
You have to buy a ticket to see an ad?
Yeah, it's a real Broadway show.
Huh. Fun.
Just to kind of set the table. So for a number of years leading up to this, instead of making and airing a Super Bowl commercial, Skittles would sort of do these big sort of stunts. And in 2019, the stunt was they created a Broadway musical starring Michael C. Hall, who's having an existential crisis about being in a Skittles ad.
Those were the in the place of the Super Bowl ad teaser, there are these ads with him, like, at his therapist's office or something?
Exactly. There's a song in it called "Advertising Ruins Everything." And in the end, Michael C. Hall dies when an ATM machine falls on him and he comes back as a ghost. It's meta and weird in the best way, perfectly Skittles. But my favorite part of it is that they opened it on Broadway on Super Bowl Sunday for just one performance, right? The only people who got to see it were the 500 or 600 people who bought tickets. Every Super Bowl brief I've ever gotten for something, the ask was to hijack the Super Bowl. And this, like, truly did it. Like, the press went nuts at the audacity of it. It was such an absurd sort of thing to do. And friends of mine from high school who have nothing to do with the brand world were, like, texting me about it, which to me is, like, always proof that it's real and legit.
Yeah, when the normies are texting you about it?
Yeah, when Gen Pop is into it. So my friend Ari Weiss, who passed last year, was running DDB at the time.
Great creative.
Yeah, and he and a creative named Nathaniel Lawler made it with a bunch of Broadway heavy hitters, and Smuggler produced it. A bit of an aside, but my partner Adam and I, we worked for Ari at 180 LA. He was like still trying to figure out how to be a creative director and like manage teams. We were just trying to figure out like how not to get fired. And later when Adam and I started the lab at Anonymous, we worked on a top secret project with Ari and Nathaniel that was meant to be the like insane follow-up to the Broadway musical.
Oh, wow.
And that's how I finally got to see a recording of the original, because you couldn't see it unless you were there. Ari was just such an incredible creative, like you said.
Yeah, that's amazing. But the other thing that this made me think of, your pick made me think of, was I've had these conversations lately with various people around, like just sort of ditching the algorithm and like how in it was always been important, but the emphasis and the increased importance of in real life and experiential and getting people out of their kind of algorithmic bubbles. Of course, we've been talking about this for a long time, but from a brand perspective, how can brands break through by doing this? How is it providing an entertainment utility to people? All these things. And this did that. This was like, to your point, you only saw it because they had the video because you were working on this other project. Like this is not on YouTube afterwards.
No.
If you were there, you were there, and that's it.
Yeah. I actually think this represents what I think is probably the next frontier in brand entertainment, which is live theater.
Okay.
We've got a few projects right now cooking in the kind of theater world and the stand-up comedy world. It's like such an untapped space. And there's all this evidence that says like Gen Z is really turning away from like digital experiences and they're craving stuff to do in real life. And I think that brands are going to start to kind of wake up to that. And you're going to, I think, see some pretty interesting projects in the next year or so, because I really do feel like this is a space that's just like ripe for disruption.
Nice. I think I am going to Google it right now. The other reference point for that was, and I want to make sure whether it was before or after this, but Pot Noodle in the UK did a show at one point, like a musical.
Yeah. I feel like that was something that I don't think I saw it, but I remember reading about it.
Oh, it was in the Edinburgh. I knew it was in the Edinburgh Festival in 2008.
Wow.
The Fringe Festival.
Old school.
Yes. So to credit where credit's due, but yes, I think that's amazing. I think people should definitely be looking at that more. I don't know where that came from in the recesses of my brain. My number one is not as insane, but still unlikely. It's Patagonia's, and okay, it originally came out in 2014, so I'm breaking the rules, but it came out in November 2014. So let's, and it was on Netflix after that in 2015, is the Patagonia film Damnation, which looks at the story of dam building in the United States from the building boom in the 20th century to the beginning of the removal boom today.
We don't believe there's a big enough benefit to keep them there, and there's a huge benefit by taking them out.
You're asking some nasty questions when you ask about a free-flowing Snake River. It'd be a lot of teardrops of joy to see that river running again.
Amazing footage. So basically these two filmmakers, Ben Knight and Travis Rummel, got in a rented camper van in the summer of 2011 and drove around the country looking at some of the 75,000 larger dams across the country. And like the idea came from Yvon Chouinard, the founder of Patagonia, and it was kind of around their activist ideals around a lot of these dams are unnecessary and actually aren't green energy as many have thought. And it was part of their long-standing kind of activist push to dam removal, resetting some of these ecosystems. And when I spoke to Chouinard about we had a cover story in 2019, and I talked about the role of film, because they've made lots of films that subsequently that touch on their ideals and sort of activist goals. And he said that, Damnation, we got the whole Obama administration to rethink hydropower. They no longer considered it green energy. He said, now it's back with Trump, of course, but it did move the needle as a result of our film. And then he talked about, that's what clicked the light on in his head of like, we should be a film company to talk about brand entertainment. Like he said, we recognize that people make decisions based on emotion, and the best way to elicit emotion is through film. It's not through books or catalogs or speeches. So we're in the film business. And that was them starting to sort of make entertainment that bridged that sort of action adventure, but also with ideals and with an activist agenda. Like there was a Bears Ears film. There's, I forget the name of the river in Eastern Europe that they helped change policy on. So anyway, that was my number one, just because of A, it was a long time ago, and B, to your point around initiative and actual there was a business goal. This was an activist goal. And I think it helped both for them.
Yeah, I think it's probably the all-time best example of a brand like walking the walk, putting something out in the world that reflects their values, reflects the values of their customers. And you're right, it started this pretty amazing run of these sort of films. Like Artificial was another one that came out after, right, about salmon fishing, like incredible. When you're talking, I looked on the Patagonia site, they've made 102 films over the years.
Unreal.
Right? Amazing. And they all, they're all up there for free. But ultimately, like, it's about using these kinds of stories as like the centerpiece of this kind of larger ecosystem, and then inviting the community to sort of engage with that on lots of different ways.
Nice. Yeah. And what I do like about all of this, actually, that's speaking to your point about them, they're all on the Patagonia site, but I encourage anybody listening to go back and watch all of these projects, because that's the other thing. This is not like, it's not the same old kind of ephemeral aspect of advertising where it comes and goes. And sometimes people will remember it, sometimes involuntarily, in terms of jingles and things. But like, this content is out there. You can go on Netflix, you can go on Prime, you can go on Disney Plus, you can go on YouTube. It's good quality content it has a longer shelf life than just about anything else a brand will create.
Yeah, I mean, we always say like the two things every one of these kinds of projects have to have are emotional stakes and interesting characters. And that's true whether it's a brand entertainment piece or it's just a piece of entertainment. And I think everything we've talked about here, right? Like you could point to it and they all have that in spades. Like we always try to remind the brands working with it, like they're competing for attention against like Love Island. Right. And like Hunting Wives and all these kind of things that are out there in the world right now. And so like, if you don't at bare minimum have emotional stakes and really interesting characters, like you're never going to find the audience. And again, like I just feel like all these have it in spades.
Nice. Well, I have to finish my binge of Hunting Wives. Zach, amazing list. Thanks so much for joining me, man. I appreciate it.
Jeff, this was super fun. Thank you very much.
All right, time for a quick break. When we come back, I'll be talking to Dick's Sporting Goods CMO Emily Silver about the strategy behind the brand's new in-house entertainment studio. Now it's time for the CMO Sit Down, where I talk to senior marketing leaders about a particularly compelling project or piece of work. And one of the biggest pieces of news in brand entertainment this month has been Dick's Sporting Goods announcing its in-house entertainment division called Cookie Jar and a Dream Studios. Joining me today to talk about it is Chief Marketing Officer Emily Silver. Emily, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you, Jeff. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here with you. And yes, what we'll talk about today is building on that legacy. So I'm excited to go deep with you.
Awesome. As we said, your past projects, I covered, I think, We Could Be King back in 2014. Most recently, your most recent sports Emmy win was for The Turnaround. So you guys are not new to this at all. As buzzy as brand entertainment is, this is nothing new. So when the announcement for Cookie Jar and a Dream Studio came about, my first thought was, perfect. You guys are actually doing the work before announcing a internal studio, which is, a lot of times the studio announcement comes and then there's a long pause and sometimes nothing comes out when brands do that. So I'm curious, what prompted the setting up of a formal studio, given the content legacy of the brand already, and why now?
It's a great question, Jeff. And to your point, we're building on a legacy, and this started under Lauren Hobart when she was CMO, working with Mark Rooks, who is still involved and has been the one behind launching this more officially. But we've been in the content business for 10 years. As you said, we did win our first sports Emmy back in 2015 for the 2014 We Can Be King. But over the past few years, we've really accelerated what we're doing from a content perspective and partnering with some incredible names throughout the country and in Hollywood specifically. And there's so many amazing stories out there to tell. we wanted to formalize the studio and lean in even more so we can leverage this, one, as a marketing tool for Dick's Sporting Goods, but two, to build on our value as a company to really bring sports stories and sports culture to more people. We truly believe sports have the power to change lives. And what you'll see from the studio is content that really tells those incredible stories.
You guys have been great at it so far. How does this change? How does the formalizing of it and setting up the internal studio, how does that change the internal process of how you evaluate, invest, and produce entertainment?
Sure. One, it certainly changes the investment posture. You'll see us take a more aggressive stance in the number of films and the number of pieces of content we put out. Two, it helps us candidly brand the studio so that we start to build more of a name for ourselves in the industry and attract different writers and different projects, which is already happening. And three, to your point, it gives us the opportunity to put a little more structure and framework around what content we want to produce and where we want to lean in to help build for the long term. So it really just helps formalize, to your point, the process in a way that we can be a little more choiceful about what we want to do in the future.
In various pieces of brand entertainment, brands get involved in different parts of the production process. Sometimes it's a finished piece that brand comes on as to help with distribution and promotion as a partner. Other times it's, right at the inception. What's been the most common point in the production process where you guys have been involved in your projects? And will this change that at all?
Well, it varies quite a bit. Our preference is to be involved at the beginning during the ideation and the script writing.
Right. Okay.
Our team wants to be involved in the content production and the full production of the content. Less on the distribution and promotion side, though that's obviously very important for us to make sure enough people get to see the content that we're collectively producing. But it happens at different points.
Over the last few years, various brands have announced internal studios of various types and shapes and stripes. Some may be assuming, particularly from the outside, assuming it takes a small army of new hires. And when in some cases, it's maybe just a well-connected entertainment producer plus a marketer. The team size and investment can vary quite a bit. How does this work for you guys from a talent and operations standpoint?
So for us, there are three specific incredible people who happen to produce all of our Dick's advertising content, who just have an incredible eye and incredible creative talent, and honestly, the will and the want to do this. So our studio is led by Mark Rooks and Rebecca Covington and Frank Eigrek. And they've been at Dick's a long time, and they're just fantastic at this. They make the connections. They have the legitimacy, I think, also because of the great work they do on behalf of Dick's in their day jobs. So it is a relatively small team, and they've built their connections through their work, which I really appreciate. And I think it also speaks to your point why we said we waited a few years to brand it and put it out there, because we have the foundation and the credibility to do so, thanks to those three.
I'd love to hear a little bit about your criteria for which projects to get involved with, and what you're looking for. How do you guys think about evaluating these ideas in terms of what's right for you?
Yeah, for us, it's really making sure that the story that we're going to tell, or whoever we're partnering with is going to tell, really fits with our values and our point of view on sports, which is the power to change lives and build community. So for us, it really has to click those two boxes. And we want to tell transformative stories that highlight grit and raw humanity and heartbreak and the lessons learned behind sports. We're at a place now, which is a wonderful place to be, where we're getting tons of people coming to us with ideas. And we have to be selective for many reasons, but one of the reasons we want to be selective is we want to tell the right kind of stories. And I think you'll see that in the work we've done so far, whether, as you said, Jeff, way back in 2014 with We Could Be King, or what we've done recently with The Turnaround, or I don't know if you've got to see Big Dreams on ESPN about the Little League World Series, but that is an incredible story about grit and heartbreak and these kids who are just learning incredible life lessons.
The airing on ESPN makes me think about distribution and turnarounds on Netflix. This is on ESPN. And I assume it's depending on the partners and depending on the project itself. How do you think about the distribution when these projects are coming together?
Well, we're not necessarily involved in helping drive the distribution, though we are we all do help with the marketing of it.
Right.
Distribution is very important to us. And that's one of the things that we've learned over the years. You can produce great content. We Could Be Kings was fantastic. Distribution was hard.
Okay.
So we're much more choiceful up front about understanding if there is distribution opportunities and helping whoever we're partnering with make those connections and get those distribution commitments. So that is one of the criteria up front. Now it can change. Netflix was an added bonus. It wasn't the original distribution idea. ESPN was something that we talked about from the get-go with ESPN, so we knew there would be a distribution avenue. So it varies, but distribution is very important to obviously make these projects successful and to make sure we get the eyeballs watching the content.
Yeah, of course. When it comes to brand entertainment, many of us are familiar with KPIs and on the advertising and marketing side of things, when you're talking about campaigns and projects and what they drive and how they help the business. And then on the entertainment side, we look at box office, we look at viewership, and when we talk about entertainment, when those two things come together, it's always interesting to hear from folks such as yourself. Like, how do you measure success on entertainment projects, whether it's the turnaround or big dreams, and what are the the most useful metrics that you use to judge that success?
I'll be candid with you. We're still figuring that out.
Cool. Yeah.
And we're still trying to figure out what the right metrics are. I will tell you subjectively, one of the things that is very important to me is that we as a team and as a company feel amazing about the content. And that's a wonderful position to be in, but it's something that, one, we want to be proud of.
Yeah.
Two, it's incredible when we get outside accolades. I mean, the fact that the turnaround won our second sports Emmy was another point of pride for us and just shows that I think we are building credibility in the industry. More and more, we're looking to see if there is revenue opportunity on these projects.
Okay.
Are we actually making money? Are we at least getting our money back? We're structuring deals that way. We're dipping our toe into that. And then as a marketer, reach is always going to be incredibly important to us. How many people actually saw the content?
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing I was curious about is I feel like when a lot of people hear, especially people who don't work in advertising or marketing or with brands, when they hear the term brand entertainment, it starts, that's going to just be a big, long commercial. Personally, I always find that the value for a brand involved in a piece of entertainment is mostly in the promotion and maybe content around the film or series, rather than a overtly aggressive presence within it. How do you balance the visibility of the brand within or around a piece of entertainment that you've invested time and money in?
I completely agree with you. And I've done it different ways. In my career, what I really like about what we're doing with Cookie Jar and a Dream, it's more about the company backing than it is about the brand placement. When you watch Big Dream stuff, you'll see there's no Dick's branding anywhere throughout the 51 minutes of that show. That's not the point of what we're trying to do with the studio. What we're trying to do with the studio is drive incredible content that lines up to our values and our beliefs as a company.
Yeah. And
then to your point, when there's an opportunity to surround it with advertising or something like that, we'll do that. But that is not the lane that we're playing in with the studio.
Based on the brand's legacy, based on the success and the quality of the most recent projects. Obviously, that's rose-tinted glasses. Internally, there's got to be some tough conversations in terms of the challenges and hurdles in whether it's setting this up. What have been sort of the most significant challenges and building on it with this, with now a formal in-house studio?
I'm an incredibly lucky CMO because I work at a company that truly believes in marketing and truly believes, more importantly than that, I would say, in storytelling. And so from our executive chairman, Ed Stack, to our CEO, Lauren Hobart, they are big believers in telling these incredible stories of sports. So I've been very lucky that the hurdles are less than you would think they are so far. As we go forward and the studio scales and we get more and more requests, I've got to figure out the right way to have an investment model that works from a company perspective.
Okay.
In steady state. And I anticipate that will be the biggest hurdle. But to date, it's really the team and the executive team have been incredibly supportive of the work.
Well, we talk about results and success. I mean, because you guys have been doing it so long, and I understand you said you're still kind of figuring that out because, again, putting a piece of brand entertainment out into culture in 2014 is the goalposts move when it's 2025. Things change, right. You know, like it's not the same thing. But have there been any particularly helpful insights or lessons from those past projects that are informing how you're evaluating ideas right now, evaluating investment opportunities with the studio that stick out?
Yeah, it goes back to distribution. So those projects were incredibly successful from an internal pride perspective and an industry accolade perspective.
Okay.
The distribution on those was, and I wasn't here at the time, but the distribution on those, from what I understand, was very tough and continues to be tough. So the big lesson for us going forward is how do we work the distribution plans in from the get-go and ensure that we have distribution? Because ultimately, in service of this not being, this is not, as we talked about, a product placement for Dick's or an advertising avenue for Dick's. Ultimately, we do want the studio to be profitable in and of itself. To do that, you've got to make sure you have the distribution. And that's the shift from then to now, is how do we build a successful, profitable studio for the company?
Yeah. Speaking of that, you know, with Lauren being the CEO and also and being involved in these projects earlier, that's got to be as a CMO, because I you know, from a general perspective, the relationship between the CMO, the CEO, and the CFO is quite important, and for a whole bunch of obvious reasons. But maybe most importantly,
right.
The CMO. I've heard this take where not only are you tasked with marketing the brand to the public, but you're also tasked with marketing the marketing function to your fellow C-suite members. I know one of the most common questions folks in kind of brand entertainment get from brands is that balance between, in terms of value, is thinking of these as primarily a brand building play or tying it to immediate commercial results. Like, if you're talking to a fellow CMO who is intrigued by what you guys are doing with Cookie Jar and a Dream, what's the case for brand entertainment that you would talk to a fellow CMO about?
Sure. So I do think overall it can be an incredibly powerful marketing tool. I also think it has to be authentic to your company's mission.
Mm.
And so again, I'm very lucky that I'm in an industry where there's incredible stories to tell that people want to hear about sports.
Yeah.
So I would make sure to my fellow CMOs that you're tying whatever stories you want to tell to either your company or your brand mission or values in some way, so that it does make sense for consumers ultimately. So you can drive brand health, but also that it makes sense to your C-suite peers as to why you want to do this and how it will help the company reputation overall. And then, yes, Jeff, as you said, you've always got to have a supportive CEO. I'm incredibly lucky that my CEO was the CMO and one of the best marketers I know. And then we have a very supportive CFO. So those relationships are key in making this happen, because it is a long-term bet. You are not necessarily going to see a short-term return on this. And then you'd asked me earlier about the team size. The entertainment industry is really about credibility and relationships, in my opinion. You don't need a massive team to start on this. You need to build those relationships over time, which is why we took 10 years to launch the studio in an official way.
Yeah, I mean, that makes perfect sense. That also made me think of, so often I talk about brand entertainment from the perspective of the brand, from the marketers looking to get into entertainment. What about for entertainment folks, whether that's writers, directors, producers, hoping and thinking about partnering with brands? What about advice or insights for them? Because I feel like there is sometimes, obviously this is a broad generalization, but maybe it's like someone on the entertainment side might, I'm not going to say easy money, but certainly brands looking to spend money on the marketing side can just fund projects. Hey, let's do that. What advice for the entertainment side coming to talk to brands would you have?
Yeah, you're right. There's a lot of money out there, and you can see how this can go very wrong and very commercial very quickly. My advice would be to hold to your creative standards and find people who think similarly to you about creative excellence. And it really is about finding that match of people that you'd want to write with and want to produce with and want to direct with, and making sure that your vision and the mission of the company and the team align.
Nice.
because there's a lot of content you can produce. There's endless content out there, as we all know.
Yeah.
The trick is getting people to care and to watch it. And so if you're not being precious about it on both sides, I don't know that it will succeed.
Yeah, that's a good point. I do know there will be many listening that will think, wow, you guys have a treasure trove. Speaking of sports, but not just sports, Dix, you guys have really had a real cool focus on whether it's the kind of fan perspective with something like the turnaround, but also the amateur sports is such a rich field of topics. You're talking about the emotions and the ups and downs of Little League. I'm curious, what are you, now the studio is well and out there, very public. What are you most excited about?
So I'll answer that broadly, and then I will give you a sneak peek at two things I'm very excited about. So I'm excited generally as a marketer and as a lover of sports. The next few years in this country for sports is going to be unbelievable. With the Men's World Cup coming, and then the Women's World Cup in South America, and then the Olympics in 2028. I mean, there is so much going on, and it's going to be awesome overall. So as a fan, and as a sports marketer, and as a marketer, and a human, it's going to be amazing. For Cookie Jar specifically, there's a project we're working on around the World Cup. So I'll leave it at that. It's going to be very, very exciting.
Nice.
And then there's a project we're working on that it's an incredibly touching story around a woman named Rachel Foster who ran the Boston Marathon after being disabled. And that's going to be one that I think will really make an impact on people who watch it.
Nice. That's great.
2 projects I'm excited about. And there's more that I can talk about.
Perfect. Emily, thanks so much for your time here.
Thank you, Jeff. And thanks for taking the time to speak with me. I really appreciate it.
That's all for today's episode. Brand New World is part of the Fast Company Podcast Network. Our producers are Hawa Atori and Avery Miles. Editing by Blake Odom. Mix and sound design by Nicholas Torres. Our executive producer is Josh Christensen. Be sure to subscribe to Brand New World on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. You can also hear all episodes within our Fast Company Podcast Network. If you like the podcast, leave us a rating and review on your podcast app of choice, or let us know in the comments of Fast Company's social media feeds. See you next month.